Just to review, finish up this Seif, the Mechaber had said that the first three parashiyos are psuchas, and then the last one ideally should be a stuma. Now, the way to do that is to have each paragraph end with an indentation and begin the following paragraph at the beginning of the line, that's a psucha, and the last one, which is a stuma, begins indented. That's what he said, and that's a stuma according to the Rambam. The Ramah said that you could make everything a psucha and it's fine. Now, by the way, I think I misspoke. According to the Ramah, everything could be a psucha, but if you make stumas when they're supposed to be psuchas, that's no good. But everything could be a psucha. Now, the Mishnah Berurah points out that the Ramah says the minig in Europe was to make everything a psucha. The Mishnah Berurah points out, after the chachila mitzvahs lasas also stuma. Even the Ramah acknowledges that that's not preferred. You should try to follow the mechaber and to make the last one stuma. The point of the Ramah, he brings it down, even though he's not a fan of the minig too much, to just tell you this is a minig that exists. He says, Im kain minig hazehu shloika hagen. Why is the Ramah bringing down a minig that's not proper? Mikamakim etikar Ramah, the Ramah quotes it, the kivan sheikar hu shebediavad kosher. Because at the end of the day, if you make all four psuchas, it's kosher b'diavad. So then says the Ramah, v'yesh la'asois stuma l'divar kol yesh hasach minig zeh. And as we'll see in a moment, you can't make everybody happy. As we'll see, the last one to make a stuma, according to both the Rosh and the Rambam, is impossible. And therefore, the Mishnah Berurah's the Ramah's point is saying, listen, it's impossible to make it a stuma according to everybody. If you make it a psucha, it's kosher b'diavad anyway. So this is a minig that he wants to bring down, so that if anybody follows it, no, you have what to rely on. But even the Ramah would acknowledge it's better to follow Mechaber, the Shulchan Aruch in this regard, and try to make the last one a stuma. Now, the Mishnah Berurah then adds in Kuf Samach Aleph that Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin should be the same. It should also be a stuma in the proper spot. Fine. Now, the Mishnah Berurah does say like this: if you were to indent, this is from the Pri Megadim. The Pri Megadim says that if you begin any of the paragraphs indented, even a little bit, that's a big problem because that's a stuma according to the Rambam, and that's going to be a major issue. Now, to finish up this Seif, I want to point out the last one. The last paragraph is supposed to be a stuma. So the Shulchan Aruch says, how do you do that? You end the previous paragraph at the end of the paragraph, and you indent the following paragraph. That paragraph is a stuma according to the Rambam. Now, why does he say it's a stuma according to the Rambam? Because according to the Rosh, that's not a stuma. According to the Rosh, that's a psucha. Now, what is a stuma according to the Rosh, and why could we not follow it? So the Mishnah Berurah speaks out, there are two forms of stumas according to the Rosh. One is the way it's found in the Torah, where you have in the paragraph itself a space. So the beginning of the line is letters, the end of the line is letters, and there's just a gap in the middle. That is a stuma according to everybody. Now the problem is you can't do that because that doesn't work because each parasha has its own column. You don't have multiple parashas. You understand what I'm saying? You can't have, if you have like in the Torah where it's multiple concepts, you have a break in between where within one line there's a gap. Begins letters, ends letters, that is a stuma, but you can't do that in the parashiyos because the parashiyos don't have that liberty because each parsha begins its own paragraph. So we don't have, if you had them flowing within one paragraph, then you could do that, but we don't have that option. The only other stuma according to the Rosh is to skip the entire first line. Meaning, you have a paragraph, the left paragraph, Vahaya, if you skip the first line and start on the second line, that's a stuma, according to the Rosh. The problem is, according to the Rambam, that's a psucha, because you start in the beginning of the line. So you understand? Meaning if you start line 2 without anything on line 1, according to the Rosh, that's a stuma. According to the Rambam, that's a psucha. So says the Shulchan Aruch, I'd rather follow the Rambam than the Rosh. So what we do is you indent the first paragraph, the first line of the paragraph of Ahaya. Now the Mishnah Berurah does point out that there's an eitz of the Taz that seems to be universally accepted. And I think I saw that even nowadays they try to follow the Taz. I could check. I have a pair of tefillin in my house, that old pair I could open up to see what they do. But the Taz says as follows. He says, "V'dasa Taz himtzi eitza." The Taz gives an eitza. Lasa stuma shiatza liba d'kuli alma. The Taz cleverly figured out how you can make the last paragraph stuma according to everybody. And here's how you do it. The third paragraph, instead of ending at the bottom of the paragraph, indent it slightly at the end. Not full line, 9 letters. Half of that, 4 letters. Then begin the last paragraph, slightly indented, 4 letters. So each paragraph, the end of 3 and the beginning of 4 are not full indentations, but they're chatzi indentations. Apparently, if it's a chatzi indentation at the end of the 3 and the beginning of the 4, that's a stuma according to everybody. So it says the Mishnah Berurah, according to the Taz, it's a good eitzah that he says, the Yasa Hakol Kamesh Kasar Shulchan Aruch, Raksha Parsha Shema, the third paragraph, Besofi Yaniach Revach Pachos, you do a half of an indentation, and in the beginning of 4 also half an indentation, and that's a stuma according to everybody, both the Rosh and the Rambam. And that's the eitzah that, because again, according to the Rambam, it's a stuma because it begins indented, and because the Rosh, it's a stuma because the previous paragraph also ends slightly indented, and that's an eitzah according to everybody. I will stop here.